Welcome, Flyers fans. You're listening to Chris Mayer, Flyers Fan Mania 93 on YouTube.
Alright, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today I am back with another video here. Back with Flyers content, back with a game review for the first time in a while. Flyers' first game in 11 days since December 18th against Ottawa. Won that game in overtime. Won this game in overtime as well. Tonight's game against Seattle obviously was not pretty. A lot of things that can change with this team. A lot of things that can be better. Obviously, not playing in 11 days. There's so many things that can happen with that. And the Flyers had a couple practices, couple days off. Obviously, the holiday and all that stuff. So coming back in the first game, you wanted to see the Flyers kind of get off to a good start, a good jump, be able to get their legs moving quick, and they did that for, I'd say, 2 shifts. it kind of felt like 2 shifts, and then they got the first goal on a power play goal. And besides that, that was really it. I mean, they had a couple good shifts early. Not much zone time, though. I mean, they went a long time between shots from the end of the first period in the second. It felt like a lot of the guys, once they got to the red line, they'd have to change because they were in the defensive zone for so long, and that would kind of abandon the other forward that went in. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but also just want to talk about the lines. Obviously, there's been a bunch of different things that have changed recently with the lines and with the Flyers and the COVID issues. One thing I will say, there was an update. Sean Couturier was placed on injured reserve, so that is something to keep in mind. Obviously, I had a feeling Couturier was dealing with something, and with the way he was playing, he just did not look right, so it doesn't surprise me. I've mentioned it before on Don't Panic with Yuri Wallach, and I've mentioned it a few times in videos and on Flyered Up on the podcast as well, and it just felt like there was something wrong with Couturier. Didn't know what it was, and then he was on COVID, and obviously now he's on IR, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But lines for this game were a little different. You have Farabee slides up to the top line with Hayes and Konechny, so Hayes is your first line center for this one. Lindblom with Giroux and Atkinson, JVR, Frost, and Mayhew, Willman, Brown, and McEwen. Defense, Provy, Braun, Sanheim, Russo, Yandel, and Cotton, and Jones was in net for this one. So, again, as I said, starting off, Seattle had some pressure. Jones had a couple good saves. Then the Flyers get a power play. Konechny draws one of a weird bounce that led out into the slot for Farabee. And Konechny ends up getting cross-checked by Eberle. Flyers set it up, and they scored. JVR scores. They finally used that slot shot, the bumper shot, for the first time in a while. I really don't remember the last time the Flyers actually scored on that this season. That's how much it's been not really been used, and they haven't really been able to find the weapon to put there. And obviously the power plays had a lot of different personnel and things like that. So they get the goal from JVR, not a guy you'd really expect. I know they've used the double net front screen, and he just kind of opened himself up like Scott Hartnell used to do, fired it, and TK had the screen and ended up going in. And for that one, Giroux is now second all-time in points with 884. That was also his 600th NHL assist, and the Flyers power play is now 6 for 19 over their last 8 games. It's been better. It's had its moments where it's looked good, had its moments where it's looked bad, but overall, it's been better, thankfully. Seattle had all sorts of pressure after the goal, though. They were firing pucks from everywhere. It seemed like that was kind of their mojo for this whole game. They were a step ahead of the Flyers. They, essentially dominated them after that point, and Jones kind of kept the Flyers in it. Willman had a tip on a pass. He kind of tipped it back to Frost, and Frost ended up trying to slide it to McEwen backdoor, and it was a really nice play because Willman started the entire play just from getting there and beating the Seattle defenseman to the puck. And then, that's what I love about Willman, is that he's able to force plays essentially out of nothing. He creates things where it's a play where, most guys that might just kind of look like a routine kind of Jason, and then they kind of circle back and change. Willman made the play out of nothing, almost hit McEwen backdoor for the goal there. Blackwell almost scored in tight a couple minutes later for the Kraken. Frost had a chance in close. I don't really know how that didn't go in. McEwen looked like he kind of just hit him backdoor, and it looked like it ended up deflecting wide. Seattle will get a power play a little bit later in the period. Willman and Farabee had a 2-on-1. The Willman had a play where I honestly thought Woolman could have cut to the middle here, but he didn't. He likes to stay on that right side going down. Left-handed player goes to saucer, it deflects up. Flyers didn't even get a shot on that one on the 2-on-1. And then Yanni Gourde scored on the second unit there for Seattle to tie the game at 1 as a one-timer from the right circle. Ended up going low on Jones. It looked like it was kind of just straight into the net. It was a great shot, good placement, 1-1. And then Donskoy had a chance in front. Yandel just blew a tire a couple minutes later after that. It was just a very, very rough first period for the Flyers. Mayhew had a chance late, essentially walked in. Again, it was one of them ones where they kind of just forced it out of nothing. The Flyers had many one-and-done chances in the first period and the second period, really, but especially in the first. Mayhew had a chance, again, late. He just kind of carried it through the neutral zone, and by him carrying it instead of them dumping it, they were able to create something. And, they walk right in, and he ended up trying to slide it back door to JVR, but he ended up getting tied up. It slid right through. So end of one, it was, brutal period 5-on-5. The Flyers were swarmed upon. They were just late to react to pucks, and I thought Jones was very good in that period overall. And, second period starts, and they're under siege early again. Provy and Braun were stuck in the defensive zone. It kind of seemed like all the players were just kind of slow to react. Seattle was hungry on pucks, and it felt like the Flyers were trying to move too many passes of guys that were too close, and they weren't spread out enough. And it's like simple gap things that they can do to kind of change that. And remember how I'd said they were kind of abandoning guys? Well, this is what I mean. So Hayes starts a 3-on-2 rush, hit McEwen, and McEwen has done this a lot, where he's kind of just sprung through on the right side and used his body to his advantage and used his speed. And nobody was there because Hayes and the other forward changed. And that's because you're stuck in the defensive zone the entire time. You have half of a different line out there. That's the problem. It starts in the defensive zone. You're stuck. Your change is all messed up. And then you try to get something going, and you have your guys abandoning early because you messed up before. So that was the thing. They were kind of stuck in the defensive zone. A couple minutes later, same thing. Mayhew had chipped it in off of a Hayes pass, and Seattle came back on a clear 3-on-2 rush. And it was just another one of those plays where the Flyers were just, Mayhew ended up going in, only one by himself. Seattle comes back, clear 3-on-2 rush the other way. It was just, he's by himself. He doesn't really have any chance to do anything. They just continued to abandon the other forward going in. And if they had a chance to kind of move into the zone, move in, get some pressure, it kind of just deflated out itself. Then Seattle would get a power play on a hook and call. Geeky had a one-timer, great save there by Jones. Flyers definitely did survive that kill. Yarncroke had a shot from the circle, and Jones with a good save up high. The Flyers' last shot, they put this up on the TV at this point, last shot was at 3:28 of the first period. Their next one came, it was like seconds after they put the graphic up. It was at 8:42, and it was an outside shot by Willman. Easy glove save by Grubauer. I mean, it was just not the best period overall for them, and they couldn't get anything going. Offensively, again, they were abandoning the guys, and I mean, JVR had a drop pass to no one. They were so out of sync, and again, you're not playing in 11 days. COVID's kind of messed with the team, and you've only had a handful of practices. You do have different lines in this game, and they had just a few plays where they kind of continued to do that, and then the Flyers ended up getting a power play late here. Seattle had a chance on a 3-on-2 rush going back the other way, ended up getting broken up. Konechny had a chance to close off the handle pass. They couldn't really do much with that power play. Again, it was just a brutal period, and this was, I saw the score and I was listening to this at work, listening to the game, and I tweeted this out because this is, if you remember, this is something I had talked about before. Win the period, win the game. And if you remember, that is something that I had mentioned like many moons ago, it seems like, before the 10-game losing streak, before the 10-game losing streak, and it was something that was just killing them. And you're basically playing flat through 40, and you have to, if you win, it's the mentality of winning the period, you win the game. And they had the opportunity to win this game, and they did, essentially, because they were able to come back and tie it late in the period. But starting in this period, they take a penalty. Konechny has a trip and call, and that was a really good PK, though, arguably one of the best of the game. Here's another play where they're just essentially just so out of sync. Provorov is waiting behind the net, and the camera zooms in on his face, and you see him. He just doesn't like what he's saying, and he goes and he throws it over to Frost. He loses it, and then it's a turnover, and then they start scrambling, and everybody's all over the place. And Seattle gets a point shot deflection. So many different things happen, leads to some Seattle pressure, and then Seattle does score 2-1. Called off for goalie interference. I actually did like that call. I thought Schwartz was, he was kind of hit by Sanheim a little bit, but, he did dump up into Jones. Jones really didn't have any play to make a save. He wasn't able to play his position, so that's why that was no goal. And Frost had a shot high on a 3-on-2 rush. I really like that because it was kind of like a stutter step kind of play. Just throw it to the net quick, and, Grubauer made a nice save there. And then the Flyers get a power play. Giroux almost hit Farabee backdoor, but besides that, they really didn't have much going there. Ristolainen had a shot. Chance to shoot, ended up getting blocked. Seattle gets a power play. It was a good PK. Flyers killed that off. The Hayes line had a really good shift around like the 7-minute mark, and it seemed like the Flyers were starting to kind of get it going a little bit. Fourth line was then stuck in the defensive zone. They finally get it out, and then Seattle would score around 5.5 to go. Lauzon scores. Everybody's all over the place. They're scrambling. Larson over to Lauzon. He's wide open. He winds, fires. He scores 2-1. And the Flyers tie it 15 seconds later. I love this play from Sanheim because it's a play where it kind of felt like that if it was a different Travis Sanheim or if it was even any other Flyers defenseman, they would have just threw this puck on net. Sanheim waits, looks up, and finds an open JVR in the slot, and he snipes it. And it was just a great play, and they tie the game. I mean, what can you say? That's the response you need. And it felt like from then on, the Flyers were actually playing really good. They had offensive zone time. They moved it from point to point. They got shots through. They owned more territorial play. It felt like they were doing everything they should have done in the previous 55 minutes of the game. They did in the last 5 after they had just tied it. So that goal gave them some life, and I feel like they kind of took that in overtime. They had more of the puck in overtime. Later in the third, the Flyers almost won this game in regulation because Kevin Hayes had a chance where he missed an open net off a connecting pass, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I saw I'm envisioning the play, I'm seeing the way Hayes is skating, and I see the beautiful tip pass by Farabee up the connecting up the wall, and I'm like, go Hayes, go, because I'm thinking like, that's going to the net, and he passes it, and he just flips it. I was like, oh my gosh, because it would have been a beautiful pass, and it was a beautiful pass, but it would have been a beautiful finish there. But overall, if the last couple minutes there of the third were good for the Flyers, and then they had some ozone pressure in overtime. They had more of the puck. Seattle kind of came back. Epperle had a shot, but that was really it. I mean, the Kraken didn't have anything crazy. And then beautiful pass by Hayes and a good play by Giroux before that to just kind of, they were kind of under siege a little bit. So he just threw it back. They change. Provi goes on and drops it to Hayes, and Hayes just, bam, beautiful pass. And if you remember the Hayes overtime winner against Anaheim back in the 2019-20 season, it was another brutal road trip that they had, and it was a great outlet pass by Voracek up to Hayes. This one reminded me of that. It was Hayes up to Provorov. He cuts in, and the way Provi was skating, his legs were so wide. I'm like, just make that move, and he gets Grubauer to bite, tucks it on the backhand. Disgusting goal. Probably one of my favorites from Provorov. He had an overtime winner last year where he went 5-hole, backhand 5-hole against Buffalo, and obviously one of the best goals in his career against Montreal, that disgusting move he scored in overtime. But, he's had his fair share of good overtime winners, and this was another one, and the Flyers needed it. I mean, right now they're 2 points out of a wild card spot behind the Red Wings, and it's crazy to me because they're not playing great, but they're finding ways to win. That's 11 out of their last 12, and that's what a team that is able to rally around, and if you're a good team, you're able to do that. So obviously there's a lot of things that can be put back together. I'm not sure if they'll keep these lines the same since they were so flat. Again, it was the first game in 11 days, so I'm not sure. But overall, I think there were a lot of things because you saw certain guys get, a little bit of a switch here and there, and the lines kind of did change a little bit. And, overall, I would think Jones starts tomorrow against San Jose. Actually, I should say today since we're recording this pretty late. I would assume it's today just because of the way he played, honestly, he was very good at 34 saves. He was third star of the game as well. So I think Jones could start, but again, there was a lot of things that can be fixed from this Flyers team, and it was good that they were able to pick up a win. They get very important 2 points coming back from the break, and hopefully that can kind of spark them. But it seemed like the last 5 minutes of that game, that was the Flyers team that we saw earlier in the year. That was the Flyers team that we had saw recently from the games that they had won, and they're 5-1 in their last 6, and they're winning. That's the most important thing right now. So it wasn't pretty, and hopefully they can build on that, and they have a chance to build on that tomorrow against San Jose and come out with another win here. But let me know your guys' thoughts below. Remember, guys, podcast articles, those links are on my channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Remember to check out butt ends. You can use code PHI for 10% off. And Garrett Crew Construction for any home improvement needs. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you all again soon. And let's go Flyers.